Okay, I want to talk about opportunity cost and time value of money. So, every single person has a monetary value attached to them. Don't worry, that's not your real value. Your real value is incalculable because you are a unique being, a being born of possible trillions and trillions of combinations. You are the one that came to be. So, don't sweat it. You're priceless. But in the state of America and other places in the world, you have a value. And that value is at a minimum, the federal minimum wage, right? Which is $7.25. Yeah, as of right now. So that means that for what you are doing with your time, you can go do something and make $7 get it minimum, right? Doing something. Now you probably get more. Like at least like $10, something like that. But let's assume that you have absolutely zero skills. You live in a super, super bad place, and that is your expected rate of return for any investment of time that you put into a job or work, and you get $7 back. Okay. Well, that's not that bad because there are a bazillion different things you're doing with your time that get you $0 in return, right? So if you want to build wealth, build opportunity, or make more money, that's what talk is about a little bit. We're going to jump around. So if you want to accomplish these things, you have to trade time for money, right? Or build systems that create money with pre-invested time. And what an opportunity cost is the price of choosing one option against another. So if you choose to watch Netflix for 2 hours instead of working at Subway for $7, then your opportunity cost of watching Netflix was $14 because you could have made $14 doing that. Does that make sense? So you watch Netflix for 2 hours or work at $7 an hour. I don't want to use 25 cents. It's just too complicated. $14 opportunity cost, okay? But it gets so where this now we're going to start getting interesting, okay? So if your opportunity cost, let's say that you could earn $50 an hour, and for what it is worth, I am fairly convinced that 90% plus of the people that are watching this video could reasonably earn $50 an hour. Anybody with a college education or any sort of set of skills whatsoever could probably apply a lot of the job building and earning techniques that we cover in various videos. And by doing so could earn vastly more than $7 an hour. Okay, sorry, got distracted there. So opportunity cost is the price of choosing one option against another. And then, so one of the things that people think is that they always seem very behind in their wealth generation or their money generation. But that is because most people are taking opportunity costs that not only don't grow themselves or their worth, but also subtract from it. And they do this continuously. So, for example, you spend 8 hours out in the city. You buy dinner, that's like $50. Go somewhere, activity, that's like $50. You Uber around, it's like $30. Yeah, your cost is $130 plus. Actually costs like a lot more to go out in the city, but there you go. But you've also lost 8 hours, so minus 8 hours of time, right? And let's say that your time is worth $50 an hour. Well, you've lost another $400 for a total of $530 lost And in this way, people get behind because most people don't spend their time growing their wealth in a discernible way. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take the previous example where if you are worth $7 an hour and you could have watched Netflix for 2 hours, what if you spent that 2 hours learning a skill that could increase the total value of your time? And this is a concept that I think a lot of people don't realize that they can do, is you can essentially infinitely elevate your the value of your time by learning skills and becoming better at them. So if you become a master of something, you can charge a great deal of time for something. So for example, I would probably not pay that much to a kid who's learning Tai Chi for 6 months to instruct me, but I would certainly invite to my house the grand master that has been doing it for 10,000 hours and knows exactly what to do, right? And that person, because of that demand, could charge for that time. So but the first real consulting that I ever did, I charged $50 an hour. That was for computer repair. So I would like consult on how to build better, how to be better at computers back when this was like more relevant, especially for older people. And the $50 rate was just like what I would charge, and I would upsell some like security software and stuff like that, whatever, checkups, things like that. So $50 an hour was my time, and that was because I had an expertise that most people did not have. So why I think that people could start at $50 an hour, a lot of people might not think that they can do that, but it's because most people are reasonably well versed with computers or could do some kind of service or like some kind like rover or like driving where you could get to around these rates. And if you have any kind of expertise in something where you can teach or you can guide somebody, then you can probably get $50 out. So I started there, and then over time, I rose my value to what is currently $500 an hour, which is what I charge for consulting. And I have so much consulting, I don't know what to do with it. There's so many clients. The reason I can charge $500 an hour is because I'm 100% confident that I will provide more value than $500 an hour, a lot more value if I get into it. And attached to that consulting is all kinds of like connections or potential suggestions or like actionable stuff that comes with it. Many like corporate consultants like come in, just talk for an hour and leave. Like you actually get all kinds of like actionable stuff like Google Docs and things like that talking to me. So I know I provide that value. The reason I don't go higher than that, though, is that I don't think that the value beyond that point is like exponential. So if I charge like $1,000 an hour, like I'm not yet at the expertise that I want to, that I think I can do that. Some people might disagree, but I think that's true. So that's an internal evaluation that I've done. But the point is that the reason why that came to be was because I spent many thousands of hours learning business, content creation, and marketing, and how to get attention and how to monetize it, which is a skill that a lot of people care about, it turns out. So they'll pay me for it, right? So you, in the exact same way, have to start thinking, and I'm about to doom you maybe a little bit because this is kind of a crazy way to think, but every single hour that you spend doing something against like building value in yourself or actually working is an hour that is lost opportunity cost. So in a way, this is a curse because once you understand this, you'll feel guilty about any time that you spend doing anything else besides something productive. But when you actually arrive at like the final version of this thought, you'll realize that it's actually one of the most freeing things ever, because even whether you charge a very high or low rate, when you consciously surrender the monetary gain or intellectual gain or whatever you get from working or building yourself, you consciously surrender that to an activity that you really want to do. That's an awesome feeling. So if I take 2 to 5 hours to hang out with my family that I really want to do, that opportunity cost might be in the thousands of dollars had I applied that across to working more. But it's that much more valuable because I've consciously decided to invest that time. So many people therein that have this mindset are left with two choices. You can work more, right, and increase your wealth relative to your current value, or you could learn more and increase your value relative to your time. And I like number two a lot more because it feeds into number one. And working more is what the vast majority of people will do. But if you're working more and you don't have an expectation of increasing your rate, unless you're happy with where you're at, like for example, I don't really have an expectation of increasing my consulting rate. It's fine. Like it's where it needs to be. It provides a ton of value for its value, and that's all there is to it. Everyone that's paid for it has loved it, and there's no like real problem there. It's not too high. Doesn't make people feel like they're getting screwed. And I could charge higher, but I'm not really looking to. So when I learn more now, I learn more for the objective of growing equity in projects that I'm working on. For example, Novo, right? As an agency, I might be learning a business leadership tactic or taking a mentorship course. Or, and one thing I would say is there are primary learning. Okay. This is something you probably, I've never heard talked about before. Secondary learning, where primary learning is things like direct skills. So maybe it's like programming or marketing or like anything you could just sell to do. I mean, literally anything. But secondary learning are things like Tai Chi, meditation, yoga, better like fitness. Okay. And one of the things that I think would be one of the most valuable takeaways from this video is that I spend at least as much on secondary learning as I do on primary learning. And the reason for that is because, like, what if I told you that a regular meditation class would increase your total value per hour? It doesn't make sense, right? Like initially. But when you realize that meditation has the side benefit of creating more time, of making you more focused, of allowing you to reduce anxiety and distractions, then you start to realize, oh man, meditation could actually directly affect the amount of money that I make. Like just straight up. It does it in a secondary way, but these secondary learning skills are no less important than primary learning skills. So if you choose a primary learning skill and start to learn it, you should also choose a secondary skill and start to learn that. And you might find that your secondary skill is even more beneficial to that process or equally as so. Like I think that hot yoga for me in CLG was a major qualifier for why I was able to run that company effectively, because I had something at 6 a.m. every day I could wake up for that challenged me and gave me perspective so that when I went into the business world, I was that much more effective, which I may not have been, or may have been more stressed or carried things over from the other day. Like being on that mat was a huge positive for me. And some form of martial arts like jujitsu or yoga or Tai Chi has always been a component of my life. So I would encourage you to not just go to primary learning as a methodology for increasing your current value, but many people do not even do that. So if all you do is learn a primary skill at all times during your life, you should be learning one at all times, whether that be it should always be a primary skill. I would encourage you to utilize what I call net time, which is no extra time. And this alone is whatever you're paying to be here to listen to this, and I really appreciate that you are doing that. Hopefully this returns the value of that, as I'm always desperate to return that value, because this is one of the coolest concepts ever. No extra time means when can you learn a primary or a secondary skill in the context of something that you're doing anyway that you can't get out of. So can you do you ever walk places? So and like are you ever wait in line for things? Do you have to wait in line consistently? Do you have a commute because of work? Can you listen to a podcast in the car? Do you shower? Right? Can you listen to your phone, to play your phone speakers and then shower and listen to it? Use your net time to start learning primary and secondary skills. I'm always listening to either a book or some kind of talk about marketing, some kind of talk about the industry, some kind of whatever. And as much as I possibly can, I'm using no extra time to consume things that will build and make me learn more. So like, while it might seem to other people that I have a relatively diverse and in-depth amount of knowledge, in reality, it's just because I'm really spending a lot of time all the time that I can, following and listening to things. So like for example, right now, just walking to work, I'm listening to an audiobook called The Untethered Soul, which is a self-improvement book, right? About better mindset. And what else am I doing? I was listening to in the shower, I was listening to the Acquired LP podcast, which is a podcast about mergers and acquisitions and such. And then if I'm setting something up here at like work or something and I'm waiting for a meeting or something for like 10 minutes, I might listen to like a marketing talk from an executive that I find on YouTube. And you put yourself in the state of constant learning and eventually get to the point where you realize like, oh man, I actually like know a lot more than I thought. And one of of course, the most powerful ways to do this is to like, this is more of like a deliberate thing. So going off of no extra time, but is just read, right? Just read more nonfiction books. Read one book a month, which is achievable for every single person. And pick up. It's so easy too. Like a lot of people ask me for book recommendations. I think book recommendations are mostly obsolete because you can just go to Amazon and search for the subject that you want, and then look at the highest reviewed book that's a New York Times bestseller for that, and you can bet that it's going to provide a lot of value. So I'll still get a lot of great recommendations for books, and at some point for Patreon, I'll put up a list of books that I've benefited from. But yeah, in general, like there's no excuse to not learn a primary skill. So if you choose a primary skill and you choose a secondary skill and you start doing those things, your life will immediately get better, and your time value of money will go way up too. So eventually you'll reach a point where you're actually pretty happy with your time value of money and you don't need to increase it a huge amount. This is different for all kinds of people. For me, it's I feel like there is really no universe where I could spend more than $250,000 a year and and my quality of life would improve at all. It's probably $150,000 a year that I feel that, because that's not near the amount of expenses that I spend every month, right? I probably spend around $60K a year, like 5 to 6K, a little bit more than that. And I feel like I live pretty extravagantly, and I live in Seattle, which is like really expensive. But I don't buy a lot of really big things, and that's my personal. So I don't need to increase my personal value, sell a bunch of products and services or everything that drive up my time and get involved in my life, because I'm very comfortable with my time value of money as I've structured it to be. And you will have your own internal barometer of what that number is, and there's no wrong answer to that. Like you may end up, I know plenty of people that make 30 to 40K a year. They have a ton of time and they love their wife and they love their wife and they have kids. They're fine and they don't sweat it at all. Like they spend more time. They're more deliberate with their time. I also know people that make millions and millions of dollars a year and they're miserable. Every streamer at the top 1%, basically. But not just them, like also like business people or such things. I also know people that make millions of dollars a year that are phenomenally happy, by the way, because they've mastered this process. The point is that like your time value of money, you just need to set a number. Like I'd like to be worth X number per hour is a great goal, and then start working backwards, like even documenting this. I'd even write this in a way that allows you to get there. What kind of skills would I need to learn over what kind of time frame to increase my time value of money? Where can I start? Can I start higher than I think I can? So a lot of people can, because maybe you think you're worth $15 to $20 an hour because that's all you've ever gotten paid. But lo and behold, like you've been on a computer for a long time, you're a gamer, you know your way around. You could probably Craigslist to $50 an hour right away to just go fix people's computers at their houses. That's how I started. And maybe you could take a sales position because you're a more outgoing person and more extroverted, and you know that you are a good talker and charismatic, and you can probably make more off of commission right away, right? There's a ton of different ways to reframe your thinking to like, once you start thinking about the question, how can I increase my time value of money? Then I think you'll start reaching some really interesting conclusions very quickly about how you can do that. And the end result will be that eventually you'll be at a place where your time value of money is equating to your level of happiness. And that will be a really cool place to be. So I wouldn't stress about getting there, because once you start setting these objectives, you'll be really surprised like how fast you can get them. I set up vision boards every year where I would just have, one day I'll show you mine. But I just have like a giant board that I glue things to, like pictures of things. And then I also glue goals to. Might say something like, I want XYZ in net worth by this amount of time. And then you give yourself a realistic amount of time to do it, and you make your expectation realistic. And as you work towards those things by learning these skills, you'd be surprised how you can accumulate that wealth or accumulate those goals much quicker than you might suspect. So that's opportunity cost and how to increase your time value of money. The opportunity cost thing, I think everybody should think about. Opportunity cost also. One final note that's still valuable. Like in the context of business, you could always be doing something or something else. So I could be so I think the most effective thing you can possibly do as a business owner is, and this is a Peter Drucker concept from a book called Effective Executive, which is one of the best books on management ever written. And you say, what is the one critical problem right now that if I fix this problem, no matter how uncomfortable it is for me, like will move me forward? And like usually that's the problem that you want to avoid. So the problem you don't want to talk about. But if you address that problem, that's the one that's going to actually push everything forward. I would encourage everybody to think very carefully about that concept. And that's a question that I ask myself when I sit down in this chair in the office every single day. What is the number one problem that I need to address? And then you can work on that. And that is usually your highest value for opportunity cost. But once you understand the concept of opportunity cost, you can weigh things against each other just in terms of pure ROI. And this doesn't just work for finances and business, but for real life as well. Like, okay, well, the opportunity cost of going to that party for some coworker is that I don't get to relax on my day off and chill here with like my family. Well, I don't want to do that. That opportunity cost is not worth paying. So rather than feel guilty about it, you just do that ROI calculation. You're better off. All right. So that's time value, money, and opportunity cost. Hope this helps. Talk again soon. Thank you.